Okay, let's roll.
Let's roll.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Chestnut Checkers. I am Keith Riddle here as always with Jordan Tampien, and today we have our producer Brennan with us. In this episode, we're going to actually respond to some questions that come up
from the listeners.
Some listener questions, and I think this is something that we should start doing more. Like if you're listening to this podcast and you want to ask a question, go on YouTube, go on Spotify, go on our Instagram, slide into our DMs, and like ask a question, and we will ask it directly on the podcast.
I love it.
Be careful there. We're not going to answer all of the questions.
Not all the questions, within reason.
Right.
But we do have, I want to start with this. Like it's from Bobby Lyons. He's on Spotify asking, what's the 6 questions you ask before entering a real estate deal? That's a specific number, but like, is there any like certain questions you like ask before?
Yeah, I got questions for Bobby. Why 6?
Why
yeah,
6?
exactly. It's a solid number. Yeah, I mean, it depends on which deal we're talking about. If you're buying your first home, you're buying an investment property, or you're developing a property, are kind of the 3 areas I was thinking. But
does Bobby Lyons, does that name sound familiar? Do you know what he'd be talking about? I think he's like a real estate deal makes me think of probably a commercial or something. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, that is. So maybe we can answer it both ways.
Answer both ways.
So if I am a person looking to buy a piece of real estate, what are the 6 questions that I might ask?
Yeah.
And then I could flip it and say, what are the 6 questions I would ask if somebody brought a deal to me to buy? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I evaluate a deal, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. It's a house, whatever it is, evaluate a deal. First one's always around location. So I like to understand the location itself. Second one's usually around the property. So the condition. Third one's always for me entitlements. So what's it zoned for? What can you do with it? What are the types of things that I can have? Fourth, actually, usually I'll have a broker negotiate for you, but if not, is like, what's the seller situation? Like I like to understand, are they moving? Are they divorcing? Are they downsizing? Is this an estate sale? What type of situation is it? 5 typically is around pricing motivation. So how did they get to the price kind of they were at? And then 6, I would call my kind of miscellaneous question, because every real estate deal I've done has been a little different. And sometimes it's, hey, what does the seller know about the property? What about the wetland? There's just some certain variations there, but typically it's around the property, the building itself, the seller, the pricing motivation. And then really mine are 4. So those are the 4 categories of questions I ask.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm going to go with the first and foremost question I'm going to ask is like, why am I buying this property, or what is the intent behind it? So is it an investment or is it for me personally? Is it recreational? Right. Like, so kind of because I think, and this is what I just like from my experience in real estate, this is some of the things that I've noticed is like a lot of times people get involved in a transaction and it's based upon like an affinity for the property, right? Oh, it's so cute, or it's so cool, or it's right next to grandma's house. Like there's some underlying reason that kind of drags them in that for me begs the question of like, it didn't seem to be an intentional search out.
Yeah.
Right. And I would say in a perfect world, someone who says, hey, I want to buy a recreational property, and then goes and looks at all the options and selects one, right? Like you kind of common sense think that. What I find more times than not happens is like it's kind of like I'm a fishing guy, right? So it's like like, what's the perfect piece of bait to catch a salmon? Well, that is very different than like what bait do salmon hit? And a lot of times it's the one in front of their face when they're hungry, right?
Yeah.
And I find a lot of people tend to treat real estate that way. And I think that's could be problematic or a dangerous way to treat it. So it's kind of like starting with the guys of like, what is it that specifically that I'm trying to buy and why? Like that would be one of the first things I analyze. And that's kind of one of the first things I talk to clients, like, well, what is the intent behind this? Right. The second thing I always look at is what I call the terms of the deal. So terms to me are like purchase price, close date, monthly payment, repairs necessary, like all of those things. I think I call it the art of the deal, but there's so many times that I feel like some of my best investments were made by the terms, not the property, not the condition, not the location, but like a compilation of them. And so like an easy example that I always tell people is like when I go to these, and now I'm going to talk some trash about realtors, but when I go to these realtor trade organization meeting sometimes, and you hear the conversation come up with regard to, a seller wants to sell their property, and it's your job as a real estate agent to help them like net the most amount of money and get them the most for their property. And while on the surface, again, that seems so intuitive, right? It's often not the case. So like a lot of times I find that like people that are selling a property, they are looking at the convenience. Like I don't want to hassle with it. I don't want 47 showings. I don't want 100 people through my property, right? Or they want a certain number, right? And so it's like someone helps somebody sell a property for, $500,000 and the seller nets their 475 or something. And someone's like, well, I could have got them 550. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, but if their goal was to have 475,000 in their pocket in 6 days, like that's a totally different motivation. So I think a lot of times what I'm trying to get at is we come to the table with assumptions about deals that ultimately, if they were removed, can make a completely separate deal. So the art of the deal and a lot of the best deals ever put together, like it's marrying the needs of the buyer and the seller together in a way that the deal works. And then all of a sudden things like price become almost like irrelevant, like speed, timing, or a certain amount of money over time, right? When you look at like lease option purchases or owner carry contracts, there's a lot of times you can make the terms of the deal fit. So that's like the second thing I always look at is like, because you can buy a property a million different ways. You can buy it with straight cash. You can buy it with private money. You can buy it with bank financing. You can put 25% down, 5% down, so all of those terms can drastically deviate the success of the deal, The third thing I would say is like, what's the end game, right? So am I selling it in 5 years? Am I selling it in 3 years? Am I holding it for the rest of my life? Am I putting it in a trust and passing it down for generations to come? Am I buying it because it spits out monthly cash flow? A lot of investors are different, and Jordan knows this as well, but a lot of guys buy for cash flow. So they're buying properties that, they can rent out, and based on the differential between their underlying expenses and what they rent, it's like it produces a certain amount of cash flow. I've seen a lot of investors buy properties that negative cash flow or don't cash flow at all, but they're looking at long-term development potential. They're looking at overall market appreciation over a certain amount of time. So I think when I work with people, even first-time buyers or the average run-of-the-mill home owner or seller, I'm always looking at like, okay, what are the terms of the deal? And then what's the end game, right? Yeah. And so to me, like looking at all of those things, and that's like what I look at when I look at deals. And again, full transparency, I think a lot of times and I had a mentor of mine tell me this a long time ago. He said, Keith, are you creating a real estate investment portfolio or are you collecting houses? Right? Yeah. Like a stamp collector or a classic car collector. A lot of times it's like you look at a classic car collector and it's like they're collecting cars that maybe they have always wanted, that they have an affinity for, that remind them of something in their life, their grandfather or a TV show they used to watch. Like I want to get that black Mach 1, from the Fast and the Furious or something. But that's a very specific kind of car collector as opposed to somebody who's like, no, I'm developing a portfolio of cars that are going to be worth the most amount of money in 15 years. Right. And so for me, like self-admittedly, I think initially as a real estate investor, I was a house collector or a property collector. I was that fish that was biting at what was in front of my face when I was hungry, right? Like if you brought a deal to me that seemed to make sense, I would be like, sure, let's do the deal or let's find a way to make this deal happen. In hindsight now, I wish I'd have been a lot more like beginning with the end in mind of like what I was trying to do with my portfolio or the acquisition of certain properties as opposed to, yep, I can afford it. It makes sense and it'll work with my portfolio. And those were like very, I would say, short-sighted things for me to look at long-term.
It's dangerous because you miss out on the opportunity. You forget that. You use your cash now because you have it, but then a better deal comes down the pipe. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
And you don't know what you don't know. And so there's a lot of it that comes in education. And then the other thing I think is like your capacity or wherewithal to weather the deal in good times and bad, right? Yeah. That would be another one that I would look at as like, hey, it makes sense in this moment in time, but will it still make sense if you have 2 more kids?
Right.
Will it still make sense if you need to relocate and you're owning these properties from afar? Will it still make sense if, you decide to upgrade your house in 2 years instead of 5 years, So kind of contemplating that strategy as well for me is something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily do up front.
Yeah. Let's talk about specific buildings. Like what, Jordan, interested you in the Peyton Building? Like when you want to develop that, like I know I know that you have your own feelings about it now after buying it, but like what interested you in at first to purchase it?
Yeah, I think it's the challenge. There was the initial challenge of it. Price per square foot for rents is higher downtown. We had just completed 4 other projects where we came in under budget and the rents were higher than I projected, but they were missing efficiency and scale, meaning the build project just wasn't big enough to absorb some of those costs that are pretty fixed no matter how big your project is. And so the Peyton was one that the location was great. It's got 3 sides of windows. It's already stacked the elevator in the right spots. It's got the light wells already running through it. It's on Main and Main. And then when we put it together, I'm like, this fits.
It's on Main and Main?
Yeah. Main and Main, kind of the general, it's in the right spot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like,
there's no way to be on Main and Main.
I was like, how'd that?
I think it's on Spring and First in Post, but yeah.
There you go. There you go.
And so when we looked at it, we just thought, hey, this is something we built in kind of like not an average person would come tackle a project like this. And usually that's where we find our differentiator is when we can troubleshoot a problem that everyone else sees as a problem, but we see it as a savings. And really, honestly, the project would have been fine. We lost out on some opportunity zone funding that was supposed to fund in 6 months and it didn't.
Yeah.
Then it's back to what Keith said is that you didn't run enough scenarios of, okay, plan A is great.
Right.
What does plan B look like? And so now we're in the middle of plan B. It'll get built. And the one thing I underestimated with it, I think, is that the bigger a project in locations like that, the more important the city, the regulations, the laws, the rules, the things like that, because those are directly impacted by a homeless ordinance.
Yeah.
By rent caps, by things that when we underwrote the project, it didn't exist before.
Kind of under a microscope.
Yeah. So it's just, it has a few of those. Fortunately, they're going to be super unique. And I like to build unique units. Like I think there's going to come a point where people are going to have plenty of options to choose from. And so our goal is to create a unique living experience.
Yeah.
So what I will create by the time we're done with it will be a unique living experience.
Yeah.
Now, to Keith's point, this might just be one of those you have to hold for 10 to 20 years to see it. But I also think Spokane has that potential. So I'm a little bit of a mix where I buy projects that break even sometimes because I know in 10 years, it'll either be a redevelopment or a play that we could do. Or like the Peyton, one day you could condo and sell them off individually.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. If it's too expensive to build housing, pretty soon the median house price is $700,000. And I can sell you a 2-bed, 2-bath condo for $400,000.
Yeah.
And so there's just a lot of my stuff thinks really long term, and where I missed the mark a bit was long term's great, but you got to survive the short term.
You got to get there.
You got to get there.
Right.
And I think that was one of the bigger misses in my whole portfolio. Is like, I don't think any one project was bad. They all had a really good plan. The issue was when you compound kind of the leverage piece and the holding ability is, it doesn't matter how cool your 20-year plan is if you miss in year 1.
Right.
So that's kind of what drew it to me. Our bread and butter is building those 3-story walk-ups. I think they're great. I think they serve a purpose. But what we saw in this was kind of, I think the M did it really well. I think we'll do it pretty well.
Yeah.
Of creating a downtown living experience on this. I mean, the 12-foot ceilings, your windows are 8 foot by 8 foot. You'll have amenities on every floor, from a theater room to a dog washing station to rock climbing walls to.
That's awesome.
It'll be really cool.
That's cool.
But that's kind of I'm just a tester, and like the downside, I get burned by it sometimes. But it's like, well, okay, I did it with 4 units, then I did 10, then I did 23. Let's do 96, and then let's go do the U.S. Bank building, right? Because each one of those, you're going to learn a lesson that should make you better for the next one. And so Peyton was just inevitably next on the list.
Yeah. Keith, how about the building we're sitting in, 808? This is a unique building in that it used to be the old iHeart radio station.
Yeah.
What drew you to this property?
Like so many of my ventures, a crime of opportunity, right? And I would say that's worked out well for me in a lot of scenarios. I would say in the majority of scenarios where if a deal makes enough sense, if the terms of the deal are right, then you can typically shift or pivot or figure out the deal. So like, was my heart ever set on this building? Absolutely not. Did I ever dream of owning this building? Or you know, if someone were to say, hey, Keith, you're going to go buy a $2 million building tomorrow, which one would it be? It wouldn't have been picked. It was really, it was the opportunity and the terms, right? So I won't get into details, but it was basically like, it was a good purchase price and the terms were, favorable or were workable from my perspective, but also it was a need that I had in the moment, right? So my previous office that I used to use was being torn up basically for future development. And so I needed a place to go anyway.
Yeah.
Now had that development not been taking place and I didn't have a need to move, I probably would have passed on this building. But it was a combination of like, I needed to find a place to go for a short duration of time. This building had the right price and the right terms. And now it's like, I'm operating a work share in a 17,000 square foot building that was, and when I originally bought it, I did not necessarily know what I was going to do with the end user of the space. I didn't know if I was going to find like a staple tenant that would take up like half of it, or if I was going to be able to utilize all the space myself. And so it was a combination of, but with the terms of the deal being such that, you know, the underlying, debt service on this building is like fractionally above what my other building was, and it's 4 times the size.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of that has to do with like interest rate, terms, all that kind of stuff. And so sometimes you get those scenarios where it's like, I'll figure it out, right? Like the deal works, so then I'll figure out how to utilize the building.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a unique building. I mean, I feel like when I moved in here a year ago, there was nobody really in this back bank of rooms that we're in.
Yeah.
And now it's getting full, and it's cool to come to a place that's like kind of bustling, and there's people coming in and out, and it's a very unique place to work at, and I love it here. Like it's a great spot for Spokane. So,
and
it's
I think
designed for Spokane.
it's designed, right? Soundproof rooms and like,
thanks for buying me a building.
Well, and I think there is something to be said about that as far as like an interlude here is like, I'm a big, like vibe guy and a culture guy. And like, I think that is also important. And so I've been fortunate enough in a couple of different buildings that I've had to be able to, what I would say, have some artistic license. So like with the other building I had on Garland, it was just literally, it was just an old Masonic lodge, but it was a cool building. But it allowed me the ability to kind of take some of the other aspect of what I like about real estate investing is, putting your own flair on stuff, you know, making little nooks or little corners that have like a pop or something that's kind of cool. And so like, I've always enjoyed that as well. Yeah. And again, it's just getting to know yourself, and it's getting to know yourself as a investor. And there are, when I look at like single family homes, right, there are a lot of people that own, like I go to sometimes my friends' houses or families and I'm like, man, life would be so much simpler if I just bought a house that was like done and moved in and like
how crazy would that be?
had a manageable sized lot, and you know, and it's like, of course, like the house I bought was like total fixer upper on an acre, totally overgrown. But then my wife's like, she's very candid with me, but she's like, but yeah, but that's what you love. Yeah. Like you would be so bored if you just came home to like a done house. Like you would tear stuff out on purpose, right? Like I would be tearing out that perfectly good bathroom for no reason. So this gives me that latitude or that autonomy of being like, I get to put my thumbprint on it, right? Yeah. Like I got to put my DNA on it. So I think if you look at a lot of my projects, they tend to have a little bit of that character to them. So
like Keith DNA. It's good.
Yeah. You know, you like.
Yeah. You said something in the last episode that we recorded with you and Jordan, and you said something to the extent of like, it might not be the best time to buy real estate right now, but like that, don't let that stop you. And the question I have is like, if you were to like jump into real estate right now, if you have the ability to purchase and make an investment today, like what would be your first move if you were to start from scratch, like right now in Spokane?
Oh man, that's such a tough question.
Yeah, because I think you got to throw a dollar amount in there too. Like, what are you willing to invest? Because I think that changes the narrative a little bit.
Well, and it's individual,
right?
So the perfect investment for you is different than for me or for Jordan or whoever, just because I think it does depend on your scenario and situation, but also like Are you handy? Are you not handy?
Right.
Do you have history? You know, like
That's fair. Yeah.
somebody who grew up in Hilliard and has a fondness for Hilliard to go up and grab some like commercial property in Hilliard or a little like turn of the century house there and dime it out, like take pride in that's not going to land for somebody who came here from Seattle, has no ties to the Hilliard vibe and doesn't have like a dog in that fight, so to speak. But I think for me, like looking around Spokane, like that's what I see is I see ample opportunity for anybody, but you got to kind of know what that looks like for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'll eliminate the one. I think it's really hard to buy. Like I was going back through what we purchased, just kind of a good assessment, seeing which ones were good, which ones I would have redone, what I could learn. But like, it was just a different market. You could buy a single family home and rent it for more than your payment was.
Right.
It existed. Now we just took over a client's property to manage it for them. And their payment's $4,300 and we can rent it for $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like I think one rule we have now is like, unless it's a development specific and we can break ground within a year, is like it has to cash flow.
Yeah.
It has to have positive cash flow, or it has to be like we have this cool property, old McGlade's property. We got a church in it and they pay the mortgage plus some.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that one will be a 10-year, hopefully, or less down the road development project that works. But I think you're seeing softening in like office for sure. Commercial real estate for sure. You're seeing this softening point. And so I think the entry points for them now are just much more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So to Keith's point, it's hard to answer that question because it depends on what your play is. I think too many people treated them, I did for sure, treat them like a bank. That cash flow came in. That means I made $400 a month. You didn't make $400 a month. You just luckily put $400 more in your savings account for the next thing that comes up.
Right.
And so I think real estate has changed into where I still think it's a wealth building tool. I think you're seeing people with a lot of money buying up bigger chunks of it because it makes more sense. And so I think you have to really be cautious of that first investment. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you don't do it. It doesn't mean it's not out there. It doesn't mean you can't find it. You just have to be more strategic or put more down or put yourself in a better position to survive. If I think rates ticked up again. They're probably going to tick up again. And so just knowing that there's that volatility to it.
Well, and so when I talk about a crime of opportunity, right, like that phraseology I used, but I think to go back to your initial question, one of the things that I'm passionate about is that I think real estate is a good investment and it can be such a great wealth building tool for people. We kind of tend to talk a lot of trash about real estate on this podcast.
We actually do, which
or
is
like,
funny.
Right. Like people could listen to this and be like, I'm never two real estate investor guys totally talking about the woes of all but while that I think is so true and we kind of navigate those conversations, I think for me, the saddest thing or the most unfortunate thing I see is like people not getting started or people staying out of the game because they're waiting for the perfect opportunity or because they're scared. There's some fear behind all of the unknowns. And what I have learned is that even like there's a phrase that I'm trying to think of in my mind, but it's like, imperfect practice beats perfect, perfect. Yeah, exactly. Like, right. Like, so to me, it's just one of those things where it's like staying out of the game is not the solution for me. And I don't think it's necessarily the solution for anybody. I think being strategic and being kind of poised and aware of the pitfalls and things that can come along with ownership of real estate is one thing, but don't let that be a hurdle or an excuse to stay out of the game, because this is like real estate, bar none, right? Like you make your money on the buy a lot of times, and then you make your money holding. And so if you wait, and this is what I talk to you about, like first time buyers specifically, is like if you're waiting for rates to drop from like 6 3/4 back down to the 4 before you buy. And let's just say that it does happen. Let's just say that over the next 2 years or 3 years, rates go from 6.5 to 4. So now I'm buying because I got that 4% rate I wanted. The problem is I lost 3 years of debt load pay down from potentially a tenant or somebody else, or even myself living in a house. And I lost 3 years of market appreciation. And so what happens with the sustaining from the game is that you don't see actually one of the true benefits of real estate investing, which is holding the asset and getting all of the extra benefits of paying down the debt load, having the market appreciate. And then also there's tax advantages, there's depreciation advantage. So all of those advantages only come when you own an asset. And so, if you look at the career of like somebody's like whether they're a novice real estate investor or a person who just ends up owning 3 or 4 properties in their lifetime versus a guy who stacks 1,000 doors or 100 doors. The reality is that finding 4 perfect deals in the next 20 years is not going to be as fruitful as putting together 20 deals in the next 10 years, just because, yes, you'll get burnt on some or some won't work out, but some will. But your knowledge goes up, your experience goes up, but you are receiving the benefits of being in the game, the entire game. And I think the analogy that I always talk to people about is like, you could be the best baseball player in the whole world. If you're not on the field, it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
So if the coach doesn't put you in, then you're not building the stats. You're not building your ERA. You're not building your batting average. You're not honing in your skill set. You're not learning how to hit different pitches. All of the kind of things that happen when you're in the game are not occurring when you're not in the game. So real estate investing is kind of one of those things where like, yeah, there can be a bar to entry and there can be a lot of fear involved, but like none of that matters if you're not in the game. And so if you wait 4 years to get into the game, and I've been playing the game for all 4 years, well, we might even be in the same spot in 4 years because I got my teeth kicked in for 4 years and you found a perfect deal. But ultimately, over time on task over time, like the person who's in the game the longest, I think wins.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what I would clarify. We're not down on real estate long term. I would argue I'm just down in this segment. I think it's a little harder. There's more cautious things. I think over time, these parts play out, and they consistently will with inflation. Every time wages go up, rent goes up. Every time all of those things play, and it's a good corollary to it. But I just think it's one of those of too many people sit on the side, or they use that as an excuse, or their first flip went bad, or their first rental went bad, or they went. And the issue is it went bad in that moment. So then the difference is play out a few of those scenarios. If you have your $30,000 Keith fix on one, what does that do? All right, well, then maybe put 50 in the deal and hold 30 back, right? And I think it's just how you go into a deal in this market. It's a little different. But the reality, one part Keith missed was when rates go to 4%, guess what happens to the prices?
They go up.
They go up.
Yeah.
So by the time you want to jump in, you're jumping in at the wrong time. And I think that's kind of when we look at our window. All we did was move our horizons out from 5 to 7 years. But the reality is we still need a place to live. This is a desirable place to move to. And so it's get in the game, take some of those cuts and just don't let them be debilitating.
Yeah.
And well, I think that's one of the nuances of investing in almost any segment, whether it's the stock market or the real estate market or a lot of other things, is I would say that human behavior and human psychology has shown us time and time and time again that it's like most people buy high and sell low.
Yeah.
Most people get in at the wrong times and get out at the wrong times, right? Like it's just human
Yeah,
nature,
it really
right?
is.
And so you have to almost kind of fight this intuitive human nature, behavioral characteristic that we have of like, because it's not going to bode well in the long run, right? Like notoriously, like when you buy low and then it gets high, it's like your inclination is to sell. And yet when it's high, that might be the wrong time to sell in the aggregate, and you see that in the stock market. It's like invest early and invest for the long haul and put $25 into a, retirement fund when you're 10 years old to the time you're 60 and you're a millionaire, you're a multimillionaire, you know what I mean? Waiting to say, well, once I get out of college and get a good job and have enough money, I'll put in 10 grand. Well, $25 a month would have beat that,
The whole time.
the whole time. And so it's just one of those things of like, how can you get started so instead of the question I would be asking is, what does it look like for me to get started? Right. How can I get involved?
Yeah. And I guess a direct answer to it, what we're looking at or what I'm looking at is just more stable tenant bases. So it's not luxury, but definitely looking for higher end locations with tenants that stick better.
Yeah.
Typically have more credit worthiness, because what we found was one thing eating us alive that's hard to predict was repair and maintenance costs. So if it's me, I would save up more. It's going to be more expensive of a house. Your return will be a little less now, but your appreciation may be a little better. And then your long-term hold on them could be better. Whereas when I started where prices were at, I bought everywhere. If it was 50,000, we were buying it. And I was like, no, the neighborhood will get better. What I found over time, it usually doesn't. Now, the west end of downtown, unique. But if you take all those projects together, you're talking about dumping $50 million into a neighborhood. So unless you have enough foresight and a crystal ball to see where somebody's about to dump $50 to $100 million, it's like target one of those. But that's what we found is that most people get frustrated because then they have a bad tenant. I'm like, well, did you think you weren't ever going to have a bad tenant? No, we just didn't plan for it. And so that's one of the projects we're looking at now is kind of a boutique 20 unit designed for somebody who wants to downsize.
Yeah.
Has money, but there's nowhere to move to. They don't want to buy again. They just want to sell and be in Arizona half the time. So like find your segment, build to that segment. And
can you build one of those in like 8 years so I can buy one?
oh, trust me. Exactly.
We talk a lot about Spokane on this podcast, obviously, since we're here. And I'm very positive about Spokane. And you are both very positive about Spokane too. But I'd love to hear, what is one thing about Spokane that is getting right that nobody talks about?
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of things that are getting right about Spokane. And for those of us who are kind of lifers here, been lifers here, for me, I have to take myself back to remembering, like I used to go downtown with my mom. She worked at a little like a suit store called, I think it was Peroni's or something. But I remember coming downtown in like the 80s. And I think it's easy to gloss over like we look short term. So we look at like where we're at today and we look at all the problems that we have. But if you actually look back, like Spokane was really dilapidated in like the late 80s.
Nobody was downtown.
And in the 90s. It was kind of like a ghost town. It was not. So just to see how far Spokane's come and to see like Riverfront Park and to see the pavilion and to see kind of some of the things that we've held on to and that we've improved. And for a town like Spokane, and city, town, however you want to classify it, but the performing arts that we have here, the fact that we have like minor league hockey team and minor league baseball team, like I was just took my kids out to an Indians game. There's so many little cool things that even towns of similar size or capacity I find don't have.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of people on this podcast, but like the one that comes to mind is like Bobby Brett, and he talks about coming to Spokane for one of the first times to eventually end up buying the Chiefs and the Indians and helping, keep that around for Spokane. But he's like talked about flying in, and he talked about just seeing, like driving down and seeing like the river and seeing like the Riverfront Park and to the downtown corridor. And it's like, man, I'd put that up against like almost any city, like a lot of major cities. Like you look at like Colorado, or you look at like Denver, you look at Spokane has all of the pieces. And so I think that to me is like what Spokane is doing or has done right. It's like we have the mountains, the lakes, the trees, the recreation. We have a downtown core that, yes, is problematic to some extent, but has the pieces of the puzzle. We have a great, and the other thing I would say on top of all of that is that you have a community here that seems to really care and has deep roots here. You have a lot of people who have history here, who've grown up here, who care, who give a darn, and then I think it becomes easy sometimes just to talk about all the problems or the woes and the snap, but it usually is coming from a place of people wanting it to be better. And I've lived in a few other spots, but I've visited a lot of other places where they have more of like a transient vibe. If you move to or if you go to Phoenix, if you go to a lot of these bigger cities, like if you go to Dallas, I mean, they're cool cities and they might have a local vibe, but the bulk share of the people are transplants, right? And they don't have this kind of like innate, deep-seated kind of hometown pride. And that's what I love about Spokane is I think at the core of it, you have a lot of like kind of hometown pride, and you have a lot of people that really care. And so that's why I would say I'm betting heavy, like I'm big on Spokane in the long term, because I think that is something that a lot of places don't have that will carry us through the hard times and even into better times is we have a community of people here that really give a darn and are willing to like speak up and get involved and do things. And so that to me is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I'll echo that. Of like, I think this chat, like feedback about homeless and those is because people care and want to see a solution. Yeah. I think I'd be more concerned if it existed and nobody said anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so for me, I think I'm super bullish on Spokane. I think Spokane will grow. The Valley will be at 2 million people by the time I have to exit my portfolio. And that's what I'm betting on. Because I think from Coeur d'Alene, we've got to be
You think the Valley will be at 2 million people?
When I'm saying the Valley, from Airway Heights to Coeur d'Alene, which right now I believe is about 1.2. So I bet in that time another 800,000. And if you think of the math on 800,000 more people coming to this place, and again, 20, 30-year cycle, but I just think we have everything a city needs. We have the number one is I think we have the most underrated food scene of any town I've been in. Biased, but I also think we have a very underrated beer scene. Yeah. And really wine scene that is kind of scattered throughout, just a little less dominant. I think the biggest improvements have been what the city did around actually creating a central park, which we have at Riverfront with entertainment stuff. And so one thing we were missing was this draw for tourism. So now you're seeing volleyball tournaments, the P&Q qualifiers, and all the stuff that's just drawing people in. And I always say Spokane is just a lot like my North Park up north, where best bang for the buck in the city. You just got to go in there.
Yeah.
And I think we're finally doing the things that bring people here. And it's not that you stick right away, but I would argue that more Gonzaga grads stick around, more people stick around rather than leave for 10 years and come back when you just want to raise your family. Because what does a raising family do now? You don't go out to a lot of things. You go to the lake on weekends, you go to the mountains. And I think we have a contingent of the population that is like, hey, we finally see what we have here.
Yeah.
The other thing is you got the educational
it's huge
infrastructure, right? You have Gonzaga, you
and
have
health.
Whitworth, you have the downtown, Eastern Satellite Campus, the W. So when you look at it, it's like you have the arts, you have the educational institutes, you have the outdoors and the recreation, and you kind of have that like small hometown vibe of people that are willing to get involved. So for me, it's like, it's got all the pieces, right? Like I don't see many holes in the pieces. Now it's just a matter of like, can we put the pieces of the puzzle together? And
and it's a hard one. Again, when we do this as business owners all the time, you have your business going 90% right, but what do you spend 90% of your time on? The 10% going wrong. Problems, and I think that it's a good thing, but I think every once in a while you got to just pause. And I get to do it every morning. So I go on a walk. If you're ever bored, you want to join me out there, not creepily, you can join me officially. But I like around 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, I go on a 1 hour walk through that park. And it's like, I have my own like downtown park, and you just really gain this appreciation for it. I think I've seen too many people like, we just don't go downtown anymore. I'm like, well, why?
Yeah.
Because there's a guy sleeping on the street. Is that why? Well, guess what helps this? We bring more people downtown.
Right.
We make this more of our own thing. And I think where I'll get the most excited, and you see tenets of it now, but like when Spokane truly owns downtown as their own, not as that place we can go, but like this is our downtown. Because nobody lives there. There's not enough residents downtown to claim it. Right. But when that truly happens, that's when Spokane goes to the next level.
Definitely. I feel that.
Because there's just fewer people working downtown. So again, you're transient nature to downtown.
It's easy to get hypercritical, right? I mean, it's kind of like when people, it's like you talk about your spouse or something, it's like the person you're closest with, but it's like, all their little idiosyncrasies, all their little flaws, all the little things, but at the same time, if you step back in the big picture, I think Spokane has got so much good going for it. So.
Question I want to ask about scaling business, and something that I'm sure you're both very familiar with, is like, what's the biggest mistake when a business owner, excuse me, let me ask that again. What's the biggest mistake business owners make when they're trying to scale? As someone who is trying to scale their business, like I've been a one-man shop for 5 years, and my dream is to scale Spokane to be a much bigger business. But what is that? Like, what is something that people kind of fumble when they're trying to scale?
I would say the biggest, and this is coming from a place where, like, again, coaching and consulting, what I say that the biggest thing I see with a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners that are trying to scale is a lack of patience and a desire to want a result that's further out than it is. And I think it's like an expression that says we always overestimate what we can do in a day, and we underestimate what we can do in 10 years, know? And for me, like, if you look around, like, that is, so people fail to realize a lot of times, like, Amazon started as like a bookstore, right? Like an online, and it's like, you look at where Amazon is now and people are like, oh my gosh, like this huge company. And they think it happened in like 5 or 10 years. It's like, dude, they were an online book selling store for like 7 or 8 years. It's like the journey's so much longer. Yeah. And I think, speaking personally, but also like coaching and consulting a lot of people, is like there is an immediate gratification sort of kind of culture that's been built, and people want to have things that probably take 3 years or 5 years or 10 years happen in a year. But then that brings you to a place where you start to make really short-sighted decisions, or you start to force decisions or things that, would be a lot better off if you just let them kind of organically come to the table, as opposed to like forcing a round peg in a square hole for the sake of growth. Yeah,
I would say growth at all costs kills it. That's kind of was the issue with ours. I have a great example of this. So with Brick West, we were like, okay, we need to go from 3,000 barrels and we want to go to 5,000. And so in my head, it's sweet. So you typically then go to your top line revenue and are like, sweet, we're going to grow by X amount of income. But then you forget, you got to buy all the materials. You got to buy the new cans. You got to get another staff now too, because you need that many more people. You need to then staff up your tap room more. You then need to now escalate to a sales guy who's out there pushing it.
Right.
And so this thing where you're like, we're going to make this much beer. And so what people I think do the wrong way is you lead by that goal. I want 1,000 units. I want 100 podcast memberships.
Right.
Great. But like, are you going to sit here for 57 hours in a row?
No.
Right. And I think too often we get blinded by the goal that we forget the cost, and kind of Keith talks about a little bit more the bandwidth or the kind of your capacity to actually get there. And that's one I missed. I was like, you know what? I want 200 agents. I never once did the math on how much infrastructure would change. And so then what happens is your system lags the growth.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the worst things that can happen is you actually get your goal.
You get exactly what you wanted, and not at all what you wanted.
Exactly.
Right.
I'd argue that's what happened to mine. Was like, it just scaled so fast. And it was so organic. You didn't even see the growth creep till all of a sudden we're like, wait a second, I can't be in 15 of these meetings.
Right.
All right. I got it. And now it's panic. I got to hire someone. Well, did I hire the right guy? No, because there was no system. Whereas now we know for every agent, we need X number of things. For every 50 barrels, we need this much.
Yeah.
So then now it could be incremental. And the new kind of partners at Brick West kind of helped me see that when we're in my head. I'm like, no, well, we're going to solve, because I always thought sales solve everything, which could,
right.
But what it's missing is every piece that goes along with that sale. And so on yours, like as you're going to grow and you're like, sweet, let's get 50 new people. In your head, what's 50 going to go to? You're going to count up the revenue. 50 times X equals X, sweet. And then all of a sudden you start doing the math. Well, now I need 2 rooms. And what I found was we made more money with 50 agents.
Right.
Than with 200.
And I'm like, dang it, man.
Yeah.
And I was more happy. I mean, I love all of them. I love every agent we've had, but like I was the best version of myself with less.
With less, yeah.
And so I think too many times in some instances like that, it wasn't like we wanted to scale. We just kept taking every opportunity. And so then it would scale. Or we brought on an entire brokerage in Colville. Another good example. Great people, great setup, right? But then it was like, you know how many times I had to drive up there?
How
3 hours out of a day.
Yeah.
And then the next time it's like, oh, they need help. Okay, great. Now it's another office. It's another overhead. It's another license. It's another arbitration. It's another. And so I think that is the biggest stumbling block I've seen for people that desire growth at all costs versus to what Keith's saying. I think I always wonder if I would have listened to that advice though.
Yeah. I mean, that's
the hard part too, right?
Yeah. Some of it is experiential for sure. I think the biggest thing is like there's a misnomer a lot of times between, with growth between, what we currently have and what we currently want, and doing like a linear path.
Yeah.
So we think, if I have a business that sells 10 units and makes $1,000, that if I sell 100 units, that'll make $10,000. But that's very linear thinking, and that's very not the case. And so I think, and you start to get diminishing returns, right? I mean, another great example is like, you take somebody who's like never worked out and you get them in the gym. And of course the results that they're going to see, like, feeling better, losing weight, getting stronger, those are all great things and shouldn't deter anybody from starting. But it would be a very different if you went to somebody who's been going to the gym for 10 years and saying like, well, I'm going to increase your squat by 300% in the next 6 months. That's totally unrealistic, right? But they also should probably know that. Yeah. But if you take somebody who's never done a squat in their entire life, like I could probably increase it 300% in 6 months, because the first time you do it, you're going to squat like 100 pounds, right? And you've never done it before, and your style or your form is awkward and your muscles aren't used to it, but it's very different. And so I think when you talk about scaling a business, like one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that it's not exactly linear, and it can be very unintuitive. And I think that's, again, another misstep that you see a lot of young business owners or entrepreneurs take, is they just think, well, this time is like that time. Right. It's just a bigger number. So having a business that's 10 times bigger doesn't always mean it's 10 times more work.
Right.
Sometimes it's 20 times more work, but sometimes it's actually half the work. Yeah. right? Depending on how you scale, you can have a business that's 10 times bigger. And that's where you see those things that I've always appreciated. It's like, I look at a guy who runs his own landscaping company and has 2 employees and himself, and he's got 20 accounts and they're running around and he's making good money and he's working 60 hours a week. And then I see somebody who owns a landscaping company that has 400 accounts and 30 crews. And you're like, this guy's at the lake all the time. He's golfing all the time. And but he's scaled in such a manner that actually his life is way less stressful and way more enjoyable at, 100x the size. So it can go both ways, right? It could be twice as big and 4 times the work. It could be 100 times bigger and 10% of the work. Yeah. And I think that's where the strategy, the chess kind of comes into play.
Yeah, because you just don't know what you don't know. Like there's a law when you go over whatever it is 50 employees as an aggregate, you got to provide health benefits. So like right. They aggregated the 3 companies and we had over 50, so we had to provide health benefits. Well, that's a 25% increase in cost in some areas, and I think that's the point, is building a system that allows you to grow, something you can rely on as a system, versus I think the issue is most entrepreneurs or small businesses are themselves out there doing it. You're the book guy. Well, you are, right? You're a good example of this. You're the book guy. You're the operator. You're the guy here with us all the time. And so in your mind, you're trying to solve it so that you can have a life.
Right.
And I think sometimes that's the wrong reason to solve it.
That's true.
You should be solving it from a business standpoint of, this is what I'm trying to achieve. How do I get there? Yeah. Versus trying to free up that, because that inevitably could happen, but everybody tries to do it and you think, oh, great, I'm going to hire an employee.
Right.
All right. Quality goes down by 30%. We show up, Keith, and all of a sudden it's not ready for us to do it. A guest leaves, we leave. And you're like, man, I was just trying to take a day off. And I think that's where in my head, it's like, how do you get people? Joel uses SOPs all the time. I believe in those
standard operating procedures. So boring.
But I think that would be the biggest one, is just understanding scale is on both sides. It's on the expense and the income side and the time side.
And being honest with and knowing yourself. I mean, again, I kind of, I'm beating this point, but I also think one of the things that I've seen and experienced personally is you yourself have like a skill set and you have strengths and you have weaknesses. And so a lot of times, like being the CEO of a company that has 20 employees might be right in my wheelhouse, and I might really do a good job and connect with people and excel. And yet I may not have the same like talent or capacity to run a company of 100 people. Yeah. And that's why I think when things get messy and things get hard, because it can be the exact same business, but it's a different skill set. It's a different skill set of a person to be operating a company versus like in the trenches running a company, right? And a lot of times we don't see that in ourselves. We just think, oh, well, I can do it. Like I know all the pieces. And it's like, well, maybe that's not your skill set. And then correlating that also to your happiness. And I think you see that across the board. There's a lot of people that love something, turn that thing into a business and end up being miserable. And yet sometimes having a successful business. So like the worst scenario is to like scale your business to a point that you're outside of your capacity and you're failing and you're, not making money and that's terrible. That's the worst scenario. But there's also a scenario where you can scale it, do really well and be successful and be like miserable, like interpersonally, just like not enjoying it anymore. And so it's like, so if you're the artist that likes to paint, like maybe you should just stay the artist that likes to paint and scale up here or there. But like starting an art gallery and selling art and hiring a bunch of artists like that, all of a sudden it's like, even if it's massively successful, you might be miserable, So knowing yourself, and so I always come back to, I think Jordan started to talk a little bit about it, but I always come back to like my little 3-angle triangle, but it's like capability, capacity, and will. So what am I capable of? Do I have the capability? What's my capacity, right? To do something, even if I have the capability. And then where's my will live, right? Like where am I willing to like dig deep? And so like all of these things kind of come into play of like, there might be something you're not capable of. Okay, well now this is a skill set thing. I got to go get this skill set. I'm not currently capable of managing 50 people. I could be, but I'm gonna have to go to some training. I'm gonna have to learn some things, Okay, well now my capability's there. Well, okay, well where's my capacity at? Well, my capacity with these new skills to manage 50 people might exist. But if I'm also, building a classic car in my garage, just had my second kid, have 5 other coffee stands that I own, like right now, all of a sudden it's like, now you're failing, not because you're not capable. It's like, dude, Brennan is totally capable of running a very successful podcast company, but he's not capable of doing that in the capacity of, but he has 7 other ventures and 16 other obligations he's committed to, right?
Yeah.
So your capacity to succeed is also indicative of not just your capability, but also your overall capacity to do it. And it's like, you could take the most, gifted athlete in the world, but try telling him to play offense, play defense, play special team. Pretty soon you start to see the results diminish, not because they're not capable, but because they've stretched their capacity too far.
Yeah.
And then that third one, the will, really comes into play of like, you can sometimes live inside of both. Like, yes, I have the capability of running 3 companies simultaneously. I also have the capacity to currently do it because of my other obligations are minimal, or I've sold something, or my kids are grown. I'm just not willing to give up the leisure time of going fishing twice a week. I'm just not willing to come in late when they're, and 10 years ago, I might. Like 10 years ago, if my business had a problem or the fire alarm went off at night, I was totally willing to drive down to the building and figure out why the fire alarm's going off and deal with it, and going to bed at night and sleeping and being like, oh, no big deal. 10 years later, I'm like, dude, I am just not willing to make that drive. I'm not willing to put up with the little teeny nuances or problems that come along with any business that, 10 years ago I would have been. And so I think that's where I really look with my coaching clients as well as with myself, as I draw that little triangle. And so anytime they come to me with a new idea, they say, you know what, Keith, I have a successful real estate business and a successful team, and now I want to add property management to the mix. Okay, great. Let's talk about your capability, capacity, will here. Like, let's draw this triangle, because that's typically where I have found the most strife in my life, is like, I'm committing to things that I'm not capable of and fooling myself that I am, or I'm committing to things that I am capable of and I don't have the actual capacity in the moment to do them well, or I'm committing to things that I have both the capability and the capacity to do, and I'm just not willing to do it. Or I find myself unwilling when the moments come, and then I'm kicking myself,
Well, I have a lot to think about now.
And I think AI introduced an interesting solve to a couple of those things, because what you're talking about are workflows and things like that you can start looking at what your day looks like. But yeah, I think it's a unique time to start evaluating those pieces.
Last question before we close up, that is very podcast related. We've been doing this podcast for now 1.5 years. We started it at the beginning of 2025. And now we're halfway through 2026. What are you looking forward to most about Chestnut Checkers in the next 6 months?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it exceeded my expectations of what I thought we would do, not just from me and Keith deciding to go past 10 episodes, but also from the talent of the guests, the insight, kind of this relaxed atmosphere where people feel like a comfortable zone to speak. And so what I think I want to do is start enhancing and start growing some of the topics we talk about, and bringing in people that aren't necessarily just local, but also on a regional, national type level that kind of enhance what we're doing here. So that can be more of those things we bring back into this community and be more value as people are navigating their own decisions of scale, of real estate, of business ownership, of community or civic engagement. So over the next 6 months, I don't think that'll be achieved, but I think starting to kind of gravitate and head towards that, where we're just attacking some of these themes and bringing people in.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I'm still like, I'm just still kind of enjoying the ride. I think that we started this thing on a little bit of a whim. We've talked about that on different episodes, but it was like, hey, we used to just like meeting up and having a beer and talking about stuff. And we were like, we should shoot a podcast. So it was like, it was a very innocent thing, but we also, I think, went into it, both of us having been kicked in the teeth enough and having enough wherewithal to go like, hey, like we might also just decide we hate this, or we might just totally be terrible at it and not want to keep doing it. So for me now, it's kind of like the gauntlet's been laid in the sense of like, hey, I do enjoy it. I do like it. We seem to be okay at it. Yeah. Right. But what I love the most about it is just like being able to meet cool people, make good connections. And we've talked a little bit about this, but for me, it's like with the best of intentions, I might want to like bend the ear of a certain guest about how they created their success or their business, or bend the ear of a city council person about what's going on. And yet I would never necessarily in an average week or day go out of my way to like schedule an appointment with them, track them down, and go have an hour-long conversation with them. And so this is kind of a forced scenario and also an open invitation of like, hey, I got a podcast. Let's talk about some stuff. So for me, like all of those things put together now, like when I say the gauntlet's been thrown down, it's like, okay, so now you're doing it. And for me, like anything I do, it's kind of like, okay, well, if I do it and don't like it, I can quit. If I do it and I like it, I can keep doing it. But now it's kind of like, what level do you want to play the game at? And I think that to me is really where I'm, I don't want to say wrestling, but I'm like curious about is like, where could this go?
Yeah.
Right. And what sort of guests and people and questions and things and topics could we discuss where it not only perpetuates making great connections, meeting cool people, having fun conversations, but also the goal, I think, of a podcast, selfishly for us, was just to have some fun and have cool conversations, meet cool people.
Yeah.
The ancillary fallout of it is that I have gotten a lot of really good feedback, and I think you guys as well, about the results of it. People say, hey, man, I really loved that episode when you talked to so-and-so about that thing. Or like, hey, when Jordan said that, like that was really impactful. Or like, you had no idea how much I needed to hear this. And like, I have gotten some of those texts or some of those calls. And so it's really cool for people to say like, hey, what you're doing is actually having some sort of a weird impact or having some sort of like a message out there. And that to me wasn't necessarily something I didn't think about, but I think I underestimated or I didn't think a lot about. And so now it's kind of like, okay, well, what are you going to do here? Like, how far are you going to take this? And I don't know that the goal is to take it to the moon and back, but I think now it's kind of like, can you have an impact with your messaging? Can you have guests and have, and
be a thought leader in some of those areas with it. I think it'd be cool.
Yeah. And I've always kind of enjoyed philosophy and spitting ideas around. And so to me, there's always, I never wanted to do that inside of an auditorium with an audience and like give a speech to people, but I've always enjoyed like what I call like street philosophy. Like I've always enjoyed the conversations with people around a kitchen table, the conversations with, because you get to sort out a lot of messy life scenarios or situations. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And so that's what I think I'm looking forward to most is like, can you become a thought leader and start to actually make an impact in the community of the people that listen or that want to tap in and start to have conversations that move the needle, right?
Yeah.
Then, and moving that needle might be communal. It might be like, hey, we're having an impact with city council or leadership, or we're having an impact in the real estate world or development, but also are we having an impact in people's lives where they're just saying, you know what, I'm going to be a little bit more attentive with my kids today after I listened to that Vanessa Behan podcast, right? Or I'm going to be a little more intentional about how I model my behavior, right? Just getting people aware of like, oh, these things are important and I should put a little bit more attention in. That's why I listen to podcasts. I think a lot of it's entertainment, but I'm also typically listening to people that are changing my perspective, changing my way of thinking, or challenging my way of thinking, or, helping me be a better me. It's like what I like to, maybe I need to listen to a lot more podcasts. I'm not saying the results there, but so that's the cool thing. I think if Chestnut Checkers can start to make a real impact and develop a community of people that are kind of like-minded and maybe it, gives them their own voice or their own motivation. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah. I love to use your podcast as an example when people ask me about starting a podcast, like why they should do it. And I say like, I mean, I'll write this book someday and I think it already exists, but like everyone should have their own podcast. And I really do believe that. And you're a good example of like, we wanted to do it. We found someone to help us do it and you're still doing it. So like, cause so many people start podcasts and this stop doing it because they're either like they're not getting enough listens or they're not whatever their reasons for quitting or it's too hard. I really think that what you've created here is very unique and is very like meaningful to a lot of people. So this is a great first Q&A episode. I know we've done a couple other Q&A kind of episodes where you guys kind of go off on things, but like I think this is a great place to. I'm always about getting like listeners' feedback and how they are engaging with your show, and like that's. I mean, you're doing this to talk into mics and kind of do that, but like someone's going to be listening to this and getting them involved is always so important.
Well, and if we're giving encouragement to people out there too, to start their own or whatever, whether it's a podcast or anything that you're passionate about, I think that for me, the big thing that I would tell people is like, selfishly, a podcast is a great way to kind of sort out your own thoughts and to have conversations about things, but also it's like documenting the journey. And I might look back on some of these early podcasts in 10 years and be like, oh, such an idiot, or I can't believe I said that. But also having kids, and we talk a lot about that on the show, is like, it is a recorded document,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know, heaven forbid, and I get hit by a bus in like 2 months, you know, it's like, in my mind, I'm like, my kids at least have that. Right?
Yeah.
They got to know their dad through like a podcast he did where at least they were like, he was crazy. My mom
I knew it.
My mom always said he was crazy, but now I have proof he was crazy. But I think anytime you do anything in life, it is a testament to your legacy. And I think all of us deep down want to be able to have people know us and know ourselves. And this is a great platform to do both.
Yeah.
You get to know yourself better. You get to know other people better. And you get to put yourself out there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, you guys, thanks for listening to today's episode. While you're out there, would you please do us a favor and give us a like, subscribe, or a follow, whether you listen on Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you don't mind while you're there, give us a 5-star review, maybe write a review. If you have a favorite episode, feel free to give it a like. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it.